So let's have our look at the graphic, remind ourselves of the top 10. Then 3 quarterbacks went in the top 10. Joe Burrow to the Cincinnati Bengals, Tua Tagovailoa at number 5 to the Miami Dolphins, Justin Herbert right after him at number 6 to the Chargers. Bucky, when you look at this, how the top 10 unfolded, I guess really with picks 1 to 3, that was what matched up with a lot of mock drafts. Where was the first surprise for you in the top 10?
I think the first surprise was at number 4 with Andrew Thomas going to the New York Giants. Not that we didn't expect the Giants to take an offensive tackle. I think taking Thomas was a bit of a surprise. When you ask people, they would say, hey, he's maybe the second or third best offensive tackle. But from the Giants' vantage points, it makes a lot of sense. The guy started 41 games at Georgia. He played right and left tackle. And for Dave Gettleman, when you're sitting at the top of the board, you want to make sure that you don't mess it up. I think Thomas was the safest pick at that point, which is why he was the one that the Giants went after.
Graves, it was interesting when we looked at that top 10, and actually quite historic when compared to recent years. No trades in the top 10. And we had all this speculation about Detroit's phone ringing off the hook, and there were no moves.
Yeah, that was the biggest surprise of the opening evening for me, to be honest, Neil. We exchanged text, didn't we, on Wednesday night, saying all these rumours surrounding the Miami Dolphins. Could they trade up into 3, possibly 2? And then the rumours suggested that if they traded, it might be an offensive tackle. Well, fair play to the Dolphins. They sat pat, took Tua Tagovailoa, and then, as Bucky was just referencing, I think going down to Arizona Cardinals, taking arguably the best linebacker in the draft, a chess piece, if you will, that gives problems for the likes of the Rams and the Seahawks and the 49ers at least twice a season.
Bucky, in that top 10, who are you most excited to see when they get to that next level in the NFL?
Oh, Neil, it's your guy. It's Tua Tagovailoa. Tua Tagovailoa for the Miami Dolphins because he gives them a left-handed version of Drew Brees. And I know people take that as lofty praise, but when you watch him play, quick rhythm passer, outstanding ball placement, does a great job of throwing with touch timing and anticipation. And I think people are going to underestimate the marriage between Tua and Chan Gailey. Chan Gailey was one of the first guys to introduce the spread offense to the National Football League. We will see RPOs and all kinds of fun stuff for the Miami Dolphins. I think they got a really good one.
We can end this show right now. Bucky, I've got everything I need. A left-handed Drew Brees. Let's call it. It's not going to get any better. Let's have a look at picks 11 to 20 then. And this is where the first of the wide receivers came off the board. So 3 wide receivers were taken in this 11 to 20 range. Bucky, I want to ask you about the order with Henry Ruggs going to the Raiders. Then you've got Jerry Jeudy to the Denver Broncos and CeeDee Lamb to the Cowboys. Any surprise there in terms of the order of the wide receivers?
Absolutely. There's a ton of a surprise. Henry Ruggs going before Jeudy and Lamb. I know there had been some conversation about that, but no one really thought that Henry Ruggs was maybe wide receiver 1 in this class. What he is a speed receiver, a guy that has tremendous burst and acceleration. Obviously, the 4.27 40 time at the combine lets you know the kind of speed that he has. He also is terrific with the ball in his hands. The only problem that I have with the Raiders taking him as their number 1, when I look at their roster, they don't have a number 1 receiver on their team. Henry Ruggs wasn't the number 1 receiver at Alabama. That role was Jerry Jeudy. So can the guy go from being a number 2 to a number 1 in a pro offense? Man, that's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of unknown to take someone at 13.
Gravesy, we did have our first trade in this section of the draft, and it was the Bucks, only moving up 1 spot, but they didn't want to miss out on their guy. They take Tristan Wirfs, the offensive tackle from Iowa. This is all about Tom Terrific, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And it was interesting reading Peace King's column on Monday morning. He was embedded with the Bucks war room on draft night, and they got an inkling that someone else was trying to move up. They wanted that offensive lineman to protect Tom Brady, and it worked out for the 49ers as well, improving that defensive line, which was so successful for them last year by taking Javon Kinlaw.
The Cowboys took put a lot of money in Amari Cooper's pocket in the offseason. Bucky, was CeeDee Lamb just too good to ignore there at 17? Was that why they went with another receiver, do you think?
Oh, he was best player available. He was ranked 6th on their board, according to reports. And Will McClay had talked about Mike McCarthy had freed them up to take players over system. get good players, we'll figure out how to utilize them. And for me, I think CD Lamb is a little bit of DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams, and Mike McCarthy's familiarity with players like that should enable him to put him on the field. And their three receiver package with Amari Cooper and CD Lamb and Michael Gallup is tough to defend, particularly when you have Ezekiel Elliott in the backfield. Dak Prescott has the weapons that he needs to be a successful pro quarterback.
All right, let's move on to picks 21 to 32 in the first round. Now, here in the UK, this is the time where you're reaching for that third cup of coffee or another adult beverage or two, and you're kind of starting to think you might fall asleep. And then the Green Bay Packers go and trade up. They trade with the Miami Dolphins, and they take Jordan Love, the quarterback, out of Utah State. Bucky, I'm very, very interested to get your take on this because the Packers have been hammered quite a lot, and Aaron Rodgers. We can talk about the team and the development of the team in a second, but there's no way you can sell this to Aaron Rodgers, is there?
Oh, I don't know if it's about selling it to Aaron Rodgers. I think it's about putting your team in a position to go forward. Think about this, Neil. If this works out where Jordan Love is the player that they believe he can be, their succession plan would be Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love. They've had 30 years of stability at the quarterback position, basically. And so this gives them an opportunity to continue to have that stability. Because you draft your franchise quarterback before you need to really get him ready to play, he gets to spend 2 years maybe working on the practice field under the watchful eye of Matt LaFleur. Look, I love this move. I know it's controversial because they didn't go get another weapon, but Aaron Rodgers regressed a little bit last year. He suffered with injuries in 2 of the last 3 seasons. It is time to make sure you have a backup in place. I think it's a smart move for the Packers.
So take me through this from another angle then, Bucky. You've worked as a scout, so you're about building that roster, looking for the future. You've got that. But you're also a high school head coach, so it's about relationships with your players. How does Matt LaFleur now go into that quarterback room or into that offensive meeting room and have the same relationship with Aaron Rodgers? That's going to be a test for the coach, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be a little testy. It's going to be a little testy. But, hey, Neil, it's about competition. It's about putting together the best team that you can put. And no matter how much we adore Aaron Rodgers, I think the Packers front office responsibility is to make sure that the team is a viable title contender for the next 5-10 years. And so Aaron Rodgers will be a little icy. He'll be a little frosty. And his job isn't necessarily to mentor Jordan Love. His job is to continue to be the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers and play at a high level. But he also has to know if he doesn't play at that level, there's a young guy that's chomping at the bit to take his spot.
Yeah, Gravesy, what did you make of this move? I saw Bob McGinn, who's covered the Packers for years for The Athletic. He said this was a move he sensed to put Aaron Rodgers in his place, which is an incredible statement from a man who's covered the team for years. What did you think of this one?
Well, it is. And if you go back to what you said right at the top of this, Neil, it's 15 years since the Green Bay Packers last invested in a first-round wide receiver. I think you have to go back to 2014 with Devontae Adams to find the last time they spent a second round. So they're not really giving Aaron Rodgers many weapons. And then if you consider that they played the 49ers twice last season and got hammered both games, so now you're spending a first-round pick, but not just a first-round pick on a backup quarterback, but you've traded away your fourth as well. This isn't a move which says win now, which, if you're Aaron Rodgers, probably concerns you a little bit.